Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind that the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may arise between individuals, the town, or any organizations. If a request for deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you're watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call and will provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing at that time. They will ask you for your name and number and the number of the item that you wish to address, and then further instructions will be provided to you. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for this presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record, and 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions will be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by the interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through the email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order for you to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Land Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days held for consent applications to the applicant and agent and any other person who has filed such a written request for notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the last day to appeal to the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision will then be final and the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who's received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in the hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and added and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. Okay, we have two regrets this evening, correct?
Correct.
So we have Mr. John Hardcastle and Ms. Murray. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a conflict with regards to application CAB 111-2021. The applicant has business relations with the company that I work for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flemington. I will put that on the note. Actually, it's the last item of our agenda. Okay. Perfect. Anything else? I see none. I will take requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications at this time. Who is here to request a deferral?
Hi there, committee. Sorry, the phone or the computer just cut out there for a moment. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bruce.
Fantastic. My name is Joel Tanner. I'm with the Office of Simple Design Studio. I do have Lindsay Bruce beside me here at the office as well. We are seeking deferral today on our application. I think we've made some great headway with working with the town staff in making some modifications and reducing the number of variances. We'd also like to have one more consultation round with the direct neighbors. We did have a new letter land with a new neighbor in opposition, so we wanted to take the opportunity to have discussions with that direct neighbor on the west side of the property to ensure that we're trying to cover all our bases when it comes to the application.
Very well. You are seeking a deferral for application CAV 121 of 2021 or 130 of 2021?
121 is 1182
Yes.
Brook. Yeah.
11, yes, okay, perfect. Members, I'm in your hands. It's always good to hear that the applicant is working with town staff as well as the neighbors. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred.
Thank you very much, committee. Have a great evening.
Good evening.
To Madam Chair.
Yes.
The next deferral, I just need to read that as stipulated by the Planning Act and Section 45(2), a notice must be provided to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the area which is application applies. The application CAVA 130 for 2467-2477 Old Bronte Road. We're not due to technical issue. Proper notice has not been provided to for this application. As a Secretary Treasurer, I have to defer the application under the Section 45(2). The application has been rescheduled to the September 21st, 2021 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Mr. Wade Coutinho is agent, and he has been advised in regards to this technical issue that we had with this application.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. Is there anyone here in attendance so far that are interested in speaking to application CAV 130 of 2021? If you are here, please raise your hand so that we can invite you into the panel. We do have letters of opposition from certain neighbors, but we'll hold on to those until we actually hear the matter. I just want to notify anyone in attendance, if you are here to listen to or speak to application CAV 130 of 2021 at 2467 and 2477 Old Bronte Road, that this application has been deferred, as you have just heard. And we will be moving to the next application on our agenda. Secretary Treasurer, has anyone raised their hand?
Madam Chair, I don't see anybody that they raise their hand to speak.
Okay, very well. So we will move on to application CAV 131 of 2021 at 2156 Constance Drive. Again, that's CAV 131 of 2021 at 2156 Constance Drive. Who is here for, I believe that's Mr. Kieran. Yes.
Correct.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kieran.
Sorry, I'm just Getting connected here.
There's a bit of an echo, so I don't know if you have your phone as well on.
No, I do not. How about now?
Now it's better, yes.
Better? Okay. Good evening, members of the committee and Madam Chairperson. My name is Joris Kieran. I am the agent for the applicant, and my office is at 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31, and my firm is Kieran Designing. Tonight we have a fairly straightforward application. Once again, I keep saying that, but it's true. Last few ones I've had have been pretty straightforward, so it's not just a line. This is an application for a small increase in residential floor area. So slide 1 is just demonstrating the overage, which is about 16.5 square meters. You can go to the, yeah, thank you. So as I normally do, just indicating roughly where the additional area is coming from. So on the first floor, we have a breakfast area that was added. And then on slide 3, we have a laundry room added as well, which together more or less make up the overage. And then on slide 4, just to demonstrate that it doesn't really impact the, you know, the front elevation or the massing. And I'm sure the committee members are aware that the staff is in support of this application and it meets all 4 tests. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Kieran. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone in the audience that cares to speak to application CAV 131 of 2021 at 2156 Constance Drive? If there is, Secretary Treasurer will unmute you and allow you to speak. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone raised their hand or anyone called in for this application?
I don't see anybody.
Very well. I will happily entertain a motion. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town's written staff report is in favor of the application. Also noting that the comments presented by the applicant's agent this evening, and also noting that there were no letters in opposition or oral presentations in opposition of the application. I do find that the application does meet all aspects of the bylaws and the act, and I would like to move that the application be approved as applied for, with the following 2 conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated July 28, 2021. And a second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you. None opposed.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Application CAV 132 of 2021 at 376 Galt Avenue. Again, it's application CAV 132 at 376 Galt Avenue. Good evening, Mr. Capper.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just for the record, my name is David Capper. I'm a planning consultant with Glenn Schnarr Associates, and our mailing address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R 3K6. And Madam Chair, I have prepared a presentation for the committee this evening, and I'd be happy to walk you through it if you'd like.
Go ahead, Mr. Capper.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, the application before you, CAV 132-2021, is for the property at 376 Galt Avenue. This is the property at the southwest corner of Galt and Douglas obviously in the town. If I could get the next slide, please. And it's shown here on the air photo. You'll note, Madam Chair, that due to the narrower property width fronting onto Douglas, the frontage of the property from a zoning perspective is on Douglas. However, you'll note as I walk you through the elevations of the proposed building, it has been designed so that it has a front door and a technical frontage, a visual frontage onto Galt, despite having a technical frontage onto Douglas Avenue. So, Madam Chair, if I could get the next slide, please. So, Madam Chair, there are three variances that are before you this evening. The first seeks a reduction in the minimum required flankage yard, whereas the bylaw requires 3.5 meters, and the application proposes 3.11 meters. That's a reduction of 0.29 or 29 centimeters, or just under a foot of reduction in the required flankage yard. The second variance before you is for an increase in the maximum permitted residential floor area, whereas the zoning bylaw for a lot of this size allows a maximum of 41%, and the application seeks to increase that to 44.39%. And Madam Chair, by way of numbers, that results in an increase of 22.28 square meters, or just under 240 square feet of additional floor area that's being sought. And finally, Madam Chair, there's a variance for an increase in lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum of 19% for a two-story dwelling. And the application seeks to increase the lot coverage to 26.15%, which is a 7.15% increase, and results in an additional lot coverage or building footprint, if you will, of 46.95 square meters, or just over 500 square feet. If I could get the next slide, please. Madam Chair, this is the site plan for the proposed dwelling. As you can see along the Douglas frontage, the Douglas Avenue side of the property, there's a proposed driveway with vehicular access to Douglas Avenue. And the dwelling itself is designed, as I mentioned, to front onto Galt. If I could have the next slide. Just very quickly identifying for the committee where the required flankage yard setback reduction is being sought. And it's in this location, as well as along the majority of the frontage, that a reduction of 29 centimeters is being sought. Next slide, please. Madam Chair, this is the front elevation of the building. So this is what you would see if you were standing in front of the property on Galt, looking at the what is essentially the front door in the center of the image, which is sort of recessed into the building and under a covered porch. Madam Chair, I will point out in the next slide, please, that there was an indication from staff that the width of the chimney did not comply with the zoning regulations. The maximum permitted width of a chimney is 1.8 meters, whereas in this particular situation, it's been designed to be 1.9 meters. I have discussed this with my client, and he fully intends to design the chimney so that it does comply with the maximum width of 1.8 meters. And that will be achieved by way of reducing the width by 5 centimeters on either side of the chimney. So, Madam Chair, I referenced this. Perhaps it could be noted in the condition if the committee is inclined to approve the application. If I could get the next slide, please. Madam Chair, this is the technical front yard of the dwelling, and this is you'll see the proposed garage and two-story dwelling. Next slide. This is the southerly lot line, or the interior side yard of the subject property. And you'll notice that the elevation of the two-story dwelling with the roof line that's been designed to somewhat reduce the massing of the building and provide a transition as one moves away from the property line. Next slide, please. And finally, this is in terms of elevations. This is the rear elevation, and this is essentially the westerly facade of the building. Next slide, please. Madam Chair, you will recall sometime in the recent history, the committee would have approved an application for minor variance at 302 Douglas. This property is immediately to the south of the subject property. And this image was presented as part of the presentation from Grenweiss Architects, who were the agents on behalf of the owners of 302 Douglas. And Madam Chair, if I could get the next slide. This is that same streetscape with the proposed dwelling introduced into the Grenweiss drawing. And I do note this image was used with the permission of Grenweiss and Associates. If I could get the next slide, please. Madam Chair, finally, we did, in terms of the request for the increase in lot coverage, we did an extensive evaluation of lot coverages in the area. And we examined all lots within the block of which the dwelling is located. And the data, as you can see here, supports the proposed lot coverage. At 26.15, we're well within the range of lot coverages that are exhibited in the area. And Madam Chair, I would note too, with respect to lot coverage, that the subject property is 1 block north of the former Brantwood school site, which the town of Oakville has also, within the last 3 years, gone through a rezoning application. And one of the provisions that they introduced for the 7 residential lots that are proposed on the Brantwood school site was in fact a lot coverage, increase in lot coverage. And that resulted in increases of lot coverage between 25 and 27%. So, my submission to the committee is that the proposed increase in lot coverage is very much in keeping with not only the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood, but also the emerging character that will result once the residential lots on the Brantwood school site have been developed. I believe that's my final slide. Yes, Madam Chair, it is. I'd be happy to answer any questions should the committee have any.
Are there any questions of Mr. Capper at this time? Okay, I see none. We did have a request to participate from one of the neighbors. Is there anyone who's waiting to speak to the committee, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I don't see anybody, but you can ask to raise their hand if they want to speak.
There's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to application CAV 132 of 2021 at 376 Galt Avenue. This is your opportunity to do so. Okay, Madam Secretary, if there's no one that's raised their hands, we can take the matter into committee.
There is no one.
Okay, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I first saw this application. I thought perhaps the coverage was starting to push the limits, but I see from Mr. Capper's analysis that, in fact, this application would be very much in keeping with the coverage in the surrounding neighborhood. And, Madam Chair, I don't see any impacts being caused by the variances, so I would move that the application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would note that there was no involvement, positive or negative, from the community, and in order to clean up the few things that the applicant and staff have indicated, I would make the approval conditional on the site plan and dwellings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Application CAV 133 of 2021 at 440 Tower Drive. Again, the application number is CAV 133 of 2021 at 440 Tower Drive.
Good evening. My name is Frank, the applicant of this application CAA 133 2021 application at 440 Tower Drive.
Mr. Frank, is your camera available to turn on?
Yes, I tried. I already turned on my cover of the camera. Let me try.
Okay, perfect.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good evening again, Madam Chair and COA board members. My name is Frank. I'm the applicant and architect from May Associates Architects. I come here on behalf of the owner of the 440 Tower Drive to present the minor variance, the application. So we start with the page number 1. Actually, before we having this minor variance public hearing, the town forwarded me a couple of emails. There's 2 objection letter and 1 support letter. I asked owner to write a letter to answer one of the neighborhood to having this concerns on the house design. So the owner purchased this property in April of year 2020, which is a year ago. So since he purchased this property, he engaged my associate architect and myself to design a new house for his future living. The owner, he just married in April of this year, and he's planning tear down the existing bungalow house and build a brand new house for his future living in Oakville. So can we move to next page, number 2? Okay. This is the proposed site plan. As you can see, the existing bungalow I highlight as a cyan color, and a proposed 2-story 4-bedroom house I highlight as a gray, and the landscaping lawn area I highlight as the green area. The maximum allowed footprint is 35% of the lot area, and what we did, the proposed footprint is about 29.82% of the property lot, and the total building coverage, including the roof overhang, is about 34.83%. Is right on about the limitation. And on this site plan, as you can see, I highlight the red line on this property is the setback. The building setback based on the Oakville zoning bylaw is front setback is 7.5 meter, and the rear setback is 7.5 meter, and one side setback is 2.4 meter, and another side setback is 1.5 meter, 1.2 meter, and I highlight that, and the proposed house is contained within the zoning bylaw setbacks, and also the house building height is less than the maximum building height 9 meters. We proposed 8.95 meters. Okay, please move to page number 3. So this one is the survey to show what's the current bungalows on the property. Page number 4, please. This one, I took the side photos last Saturday and having this public hearing sign on the property. I just put the proposed building elevation on this photo just to give public and the COA board members some kind of perspective on how the house gonna build on the site. Basically, from this page, and you can see this is the typical two-story house with a two-car garage, and the entry door is in the middle, and the living room on the left side. There's nothing special. Please move to page number 5. Okay, on this page, I built a 3D model to give the public and the board member the isometric view to show the proportion and the massive of the house compared to the property and adjacent neighborhood. As you can see, I drew the 3D model of the two adjacent neighborhood. They are original bungalow buildings at the left and the right side of the neighbor, and they are one-story bungalow. This is, I believe, this is built in the year 1960s, and our house is. I also show a transparent box just to give the public and the board members to see the proposed house is within the setback and height limitations. This view is an isometric view from the tower drive. Next page, please. This view is another 3D isometric view to show what's going on the back compared to the neighbor's house. Next page, please. This page is the floor plan design. As you can see, we have in the basement and the ground floor level, we include in the living room, dining room, family room, kitchen, and study. It's nothing. It's a very regular house. Next page, please. This page is show the second floor and the roof plan, and we propose in the 4 bedrooms at second floor, and we have a skylight in the middle of the roof. Please, next page, please. This is show the front elevation and the rear elevation. You can see the highlights of the line of a maximum 9-meter building height. So the pitch of the roof is just under the side of the 9-meter building height. Next page, please. This is the both side elevation to show the proposed house design. Next page, please. I took the photo of the adjacent neighborhood, and most of the neighborhood, they looks like they are a typical 2-car garage and a 2-story house building over there. And I believe our proposed house is the front elevation is smaller than all these already built houses. I just want to bring attention to the public and the board members. I did a good design, and just having increased the usable floor area to accommodating the COVID-19, because the owner trying to having extra space for living. But however, the GFA, the usable floor area is is a total usable floor area, including the ground floor and the second floor. So basically, that GFA is divided by 2 is the is building footprint or coverage. So I just show this page and the next page to presenting the surrounding neighborhoods. They have these massive houses around, and our proposed design proposed the total GFA is 354 square meter, and allowed we are a little bit over the allowed GFA by 24.35%. The allowable GFA is 295 square meters. I understood that this is a little bit challenge, but I just looking for the support by from neighbors and the committee of adjustment board members. So I guess I finished, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Frank at this time from committee members? Mr. Talaski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The pictures that you just showed the committee, are you aware whether any of those houses required variances for the size of the house?
Mr. Frank, did you hear the question?
Yes, I saw the Mr. Twaski is asking. Okay, sorry about that. I'll be honest, I'm not aware of the minor variance from this house. The purpose I took the pictures is I just want to make sure the proposed design is match the surrounding houses. The property is about 50 feet wide and 125 feet deep. So this property is a typical property in that neighborhood. That's what I believe. Sorry, I don't have the result of the other houses, who's applying the minor variance or not.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone in the audience who is here to speak to application CAV 133 of 2021 at 440 Tower Drive? Has anyone put their hands up, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Madam Chair, I do see somebody who is in attendance, but I'm not sure if they didn't raise their hand, so I'm not sure if they want to speak or not.
Okay. All right. If there's no one here to speak to application CAV 133 of 2021 at 440 Tower Drive, we will be taking the matter into committee. If you would like to speak to the application, please raise your hand.
Okay, I do have somebody. Just a second.
Hello, I did. I'm Harry Kosterman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a resident of 1221 Wood Place, and when I saw the application, I was quite shocked at the size of the floor space compared to anything in the area. Even with the larger homes he showed, I was not aware of variances for the size. For that particular matter, they were not brought to my attention. It may have been that I was outside of the zone for where those houses are there. But I just want to make sure you have my email and my concerns. Most of my concerns were probably from the predecessor to the current owner, and we had a lot of issues with the house being empty for many years, and it's still empty, and it has been for the last, well, for as long as I can remember now. But I read that the staff had 4 issues, your 4 pillars or the 4 things you look for in these, and they had issues with all 4 aspects of that in your documentation on site and for the site. So, but I see that the region has expressed no concern. So I suppose it's in the hands of the committee, but it seems that most of the houses are about 1,100 square feet on a big day, and this thing is going to be 3,700 square feet. So it's 3.5 times bigger than the adjacent properties in floor space. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Kosterman at this time? Mr. Flemington, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me, Mr. Kosterman, having reviewed the application, and I did also review the letter that you had submitted, I just wanted to ask you, are you clear that there are no variances that are being requested for additional space for the front yard, side yard, or rear yard, or height? So therefore, having said that, the size of the dwelling will still be, the walls will still be the same. So, and then saying that, okay, thank you. You said that you are aware of that.
Well, I did not see the actual plans. They weren't available on the site when I did submit my email. So I didn't see the plans until after. And it looks much more reasonable than when I first saw it. But I was fascinated by the fact that you had 4 issues. What do you call it? The 4
variants? Sorry.
4 tests.
Yeah, the 4 tests. And the reason why I ask that is there's sometimes that people come to the committee and pardon me, I understood your perspective, and I also saw another letter from someone that was in support of the application that did speak to the fact that this particular site has not, being maintained or what have you. However, we now have someone that is looking to, build something on it. And, as far as what they're looking to do, they're not asking for any variances other than the floor area of which they've requested. So I just know that there's sometimes, in the community, people aren't aware that, what concerns me is there a negative impact? But because the 4 walls are still going to be the same, I'm just curious as to know what is the negative impact, on yourself.
Yeah, no, for me, it was more frustration. And I think last June, I actually pulled garbage out of the ditch because they were cutting grass around it and not getting into the ditch with the damn lawnmower. Stupid stuff. And it just drove me mad. And I wasn't the only one that's had this issue. So when I saw this deviation of 25%, I thought, that's crazy. But there was no detail. Now that I see the detail of the house, I think it looks quite reasonable. What is a big red flag for me is being bought by a numbered company. That generally reeks of immediate sale after the build is complete.
Right. And the other question that I had is, for myself, having toured the neighborhood, I do think that I know that there are a number of houses that are not second story, but I do think that based on the development that has happened in that area, that it is comparable to some of the other second story homes that are being built, that have been built in that area. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I suspect if I had seen the as I say, the two red flags at the time when I submitted the email was there was no detail on your website yet with the plan, so there was no information about the actual house, and the fact that it's a numbered company. So I will leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, any further questions? Anyone else that is in attendance would like to address the committee?
Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'm just promoting somebody else who wants to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, Madam Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you. We can't see you. I don't know if you have the capacity to put your camera on.
My apologies. I'm trying to find it right now. I think
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name's Fred Harding. I'm the resident immediately next door to 440 Tower. And this is Nick. He's the resident immediately behind 440 Tower. So thank you very much for allowing us to attend this meeting. I think my question, it relates to what Harry just mentioned earlier about a numbered company being the owner. We do see animal life regularly. There are 5 raccoons that live in the roof of this building, which we watch every night. There are rats in the neighborhood. We see them regularly. And Nick sees a skunk. Every morning. So we don't feel that this property is currently being well maintained. And I guess my question would be, as a numbered company, what assurances do we have that somebody is accountable for this property before it gets approval for a build, during the build, since we're probably going to be experiencing the biggest disruption during the construction period, and then afterwards? That would be my question for Mr. Frank or Mr. May. Nick, anything you want to add to that?
No, I didn't want.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Harding, thank you for raising your question. Yes, the most of the people, they do have a concern about the number companies. Yes, I also have any concerns. Actually, this owner, I'm not sure they're using the number as the purchasing owner, but however, the owner, his name is Kevin, last name is John, Chang. I already mentioned it to the public and community board members, and he just married, and he is going to move to this property when we build the new houses. And yes, and they do have concerns when we walked around with the owner last Saturday, and most of people have the concern of this abandoned house, because the house, the owner told me, is about abandoned 5 years now, and they just purchased last year. And after COVID-19, and we start to design and doing the construction. And as the professional, I am an OA members, and I under the regulation of the Ontario Association of the Architects, and we also have a professional engineers on board to make this house to build as per design. Perhaps you already looked at the presentation. You already see the massive of the house, and you already see the floor plan. And I believe our house is retained the side setback is at 2.4 meters as per zoning requirement, and another side is 1.5. Is a little bit more than the setback, which is 1.2. So that's, I believe, the new house. When we build a new house, that will be keep the really reasonable side setbacks to the adjacent neighbors, and the height of the proposed house is not less than 9-meter height. So that's still blending in the neighborhoods. I hope my answer will answer your questions.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we had a concern with any of the measurements that are being proposed with the house. I think the concern is the type of ownership and the accountability for managing it before construction, during construction, and after.
I appreciate your questions, gentlemen, but these questions are not within the purview of the committee. In terms of ownership and accountability during construction, you will have the town staff in terms of inspections and follow-up while the construction is going on. And perhaps Mr. May can provide you with his contacts in order for you to stay in contact with him for further questions and clarifications. But we do have to take the matter into committee. If you don't have anything further with respect to the variances and the application that is before us that we do have to kind of tackle at this point in time, then we will take the matter into committee and start the discussion amongst ourselves.
Yeah, by the way, I'm happy to provide the construction general contractor name and contact info to you. And I also will let the owner and the future GC to contact you and the neighborhoods to make sure the house will be built under the regulation of Ontario Building Code and all such and its zoning bylaws.
I think that would be appreciated, and definitely probably by more than just us. I think, around the other corner of the neighborhood, everyone seems to talk. And I think that kind of contact or that kind of accountability would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. May, if you just take down the neighbors' names and then you can liaison through the Secretary Treasurer, because I think it's going to be very difficult for you to exchange information in public. And seeing as though we are not in a meeting, and what we usually do and prior to COVID is people would go outside and talk and introduce themselves, but we don't have that luxury when we're on Zoom. So I'll leave it to you to liaison through the Secretary Treasurer to get the information across to both parties. I hope that's satisfactory to all.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I also need the address from Mr. Harding and Mr. Nick. I need their addresses because the
Oh yes, for the
has to be-
record. Okay.
Yeah, yes, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Harding. And
Yes, my address is 1207 Wood Place, so I'm immediately adjacent to 440 Tower.
Thank you. And Mr. Nick?
1217 Wood Place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so who would like to start the ball rolling? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the the neighbors for participating in the meeting as well as putting what their concerns are. I do think it is evident that in that community, having this site that has been, somewhat not taken care of to the expectations of neighbors, part of this has led to what their concerns are over what is being built on that site. But yet, having heard the oral presentations from them, noting that with regards to the variance that's being requested, and noting that that variance is not having a negative impact on the neighbors from there not being any setbacks, etc. It's just a gross floor area, so that's within the premises. I find that the application is one that is minor in nature as a result. I find that it is in keeping with development within the neighborhood when you compare to my site visit with regards to the other second-story homes that have been built in the neighborhood, and that it does meet the intent of the town's bylaws. So I would like to move a motion. I would also like to comment that, the applicant's agent is now making an attempt to keep in touch with the neighbors as far as the next steps with regards to what their concerns are over who the owners are, and noting that it is a resident that is planning on moving into that building. So I would like to encourage the applicant and its agent to continue to do so. And in saying that, I'd like to move that the application be approved as applied for. I do want to note that the town's written report was not in support of the application, but based on what was presented, as well as my site visitation, and also noting the one letter of support in the application, that it be approved as applied for. So in saying that, with the condition, and help me if I need to add anything here, that it be approved with the plans. Sorry, hang on one second. The building to be built in general accordance with the approved site plan and elevations dated April 28th, 2020. And the second condition, that the approval expire 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Go ahead, Mr. Talosky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I see this application completely different than Mr. Flemington. Letting a property fall into disrepair so whatever gets built will be better than what's there today is not a justification in my mind to overbuild on a property. I do tend to agree with staff and some of the concerns raised by the residents that this application, that's approximately 700 plus square feet greater than what's permitted, it represents an overbuilding that's not appropriate. And with respect to Mr. Trigano's letter, which is actually in support, I actually do agree with his premise in his letter that in a neighborhood like this, you should assess the variances, the proposed dwelling in relation to the emerging nature of the community. But when I look at all the other new houses, they've all attempted to mitigate their size in relation to the original bungalows, lowered roofs, porches, dormers. When I look at this application, I see two very straight, tall, two-story walls that make no attempt to mitigate the impact of the size of this building. The superimposed drawing that was shown to us tonight, I believe, was completely out of scale and showed the house significantly smaller than how it would look on the lot. Madam Chair, I cannot support this application or this motion to approve.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Sorry, I just want to add that I obviously respect my colleagues' opinion, but I think that there were some photos that were illustrating some of the residences that were in that area. And when you look at a couple of them where the roof lines were and such, I found were somewhat comparable to what was being proposed in this application. So I just wanted it known that that is why my perspective is that it is, relative to what is being built in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Okay, so the motion to approve as submitted is on the table with the red conditions. All those in support? Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Your application has been approved. One opposed.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and the board members. Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Have a good evening.
Application CAV 134 of 2021 at 2055 to 2065 Cornwall Road. Again, it's application CAV 134 of 2021 at 2055 2065 Cornwall Road.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Amy Chung of MHPC Planning. The mailing address is 7050 Weston Road, Unit 230, City of Vaughan, and the postal code is L4L 8G7. I'm also here with Mr. David McKay of MHPC Planning and Mr. Mark Crawford of CGH Transportation. Just a quick review. The purpose of this minor variance application is to permit parking reduction that will support the new proposed commercial developments at the existing business employment lands in the town of Oakville. We review the staff report and we support their findings for recommending of approval, and we do not have any objections to the recommendation of conditions. We have been working with town staff to refine the project through an assisting site plan application, and we are at a level that the town staff is comfortable to let this application pursue forward. A transportation brief has been submitted through the site plan application, which were reviewed and accepted by the town transportation staff. So in our opinion, the proposed parking space reduction meets the 4 test and represent good planning. And I'm happy to go into a detailed presentation if you would like, or I can answer any questions that the committee members have.
Very well, thank you, Ms. Chung. Are there any questions of Ms. Chung at this time? Or Mr. Crawford or Mr. McKay? I see none. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to application CAV 134 of 2021 at 2055 to 2065 Cornwall Road? If there's anyone in attendance, Madam Secretary Treasurer, can you let us know?
There is none in attendance that they want to speak.
Very well. If there are no questions and there's no one in attendance who would like to speak to this application, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tlowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I find this application to be an appropriate use of an underutilized property, and I don't see the impacts that would be caused by the variances that are being, or the variance being requested. So I would move that the application be approved as applied for. I would note that there were no submissions from the community. I find it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I would make that approval conditional on the construction, the buildings proceeding in general accordance with the approved site plan and elevations to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that a building permit issued within 2 years.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you
very much.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Application CAV 135 of 2021 at 98 Howell Road. Again, it's application CAV 135 of 2021 at 98 Howell Road. If anyone would like to speak to this application, you can call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Who do we have here for this application?
Hi there, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is David DeVore. I'm with Mark on Construction. I'm the agent for the applicant at 98 Howell Road. It's a fairly straightforward project. There's an existing deck on the property over which we're looking to construct a roof to provide some cover. The reason why we're looking for a variance on this is because complying with the rear yard setback, which is the only identified variance, would leave a small portion of the proposed deck uncovered. It's also an irregular shaped lot. So because of that, only a small portion of the covered area is actually going to be requiring relief from the zoning bylaw. If I could have the next page here. You'll see on the site plan on the left-hand side is, you can see the deck in the rear yard at the bottom of the drawing. You can see the irregular lot shape that will show how the property lines widen as the lot moves from left to right, which is why we're looking for a variance to permit a rear yard setback of 6.3. Because it's an existing deck, there's not going to be any new privacy concerns for the neighbors. The rear yard amenity spaces are going to be maintained. And I'd also like to point out what was noted in the staff comments. If this were a gazebo or a similar structure like that, we would only require 0.6 meters from the rear lot line. And this is a very comparable structure to a gazebo, the main difference being that it's attached to the dwelling, but functionally very similar. I feel it's a desirable development for the property. We've discussed with other neighbors around, and the client advises me that there were no issues raised with any of the neighbors. One of them voiced that they were excited to see the project progress and wanted to see what it did for the property. It's also not visible from the street, so there's not really any impact on the streetscape either. So in my opinion, the variance is minor, and I feel it meets the 4 tests, but I leave that to the committee, and I'll welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeVore. Are there any questions of Mr. DeVore at this time? Okay, I see none. Are there any members in attendance who would like to speak to this application? I do note that we did have one letter of objection, Mr. Stephen Howell. If there's no one in attendance who's raised their hand, Madam Secretary Treasurer will take the matter into committee.
There is none.
Okay. Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town's report is in support of the application, also noting that there were no oral objections or support of the application. There was one letter of objection of the application. I do find that the application does meet all the 4 tests of the Planning Act and the bylaws for the town of Oakville, and would like to move that the application be approved as applied for with the following 2 conditions. One, that the covered porch be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated the 25th, 05/21. And our second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Application CAV 136 of 2021 at 1054 Rebecca Street. Again, it's CAV 136 2021 at 1054 Rebecca Street. If you are interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Good evening, Mr. Lima.
Good evening, all. Madam Chair. My name is Fernando Lima. I am with Lima Architects, and we are the agent for the owner of 1054 Rebecca Street. My address is 5100 South Service Road, Burlington, Ontario, Unit 59, postal code L7L685. And I'm here tonight to present the application for 1054 Rebecca Street. This is a very kind of straightforward application. We're only seeking one minor variance, which is to allow a front setback to be 20.11 meters, where the bylaw would require to be what's existing -1, which will be end up to be about 23 meters. So it's not a big difference. The reason for that variance is to allow for a slightly bigger backyard. We are in the corner lot of Rebecca and Westwood Drive, and with the new house will be roughly in line with the neighbor to the east. I believe it's 1046. I'm sure that you've seen the report that the planning staff has in support of the application that it meets all the four tests of the act. The owner also has spoken to the neighbors, and then they have no objection. They're all in support, and that's my understanding. And yeah, I think it's pretty much it. It's a very straightforward application. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Lima. Are there any questions of Mr. Lima at this time? I see none. If there's no one here to speak to the application, we can take the matter into committee. Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the four tests of the Planning Act. I think regularizing the streetscape is a desirable situation here. I would note that there are no objections from the community with respect to this application. I would make that approval subject to the dwelling being built in general accordance with the site plan dated 08/03/2021, elevations July 2021, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 137 of 2021 at 393 Sandhurst Drive. Again, it's application CAV 137 of 2021 at 393 Sandhurst Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Keulen from Hughes Design Studio. We are at 1A Conestoga Drive, Unit 301 in Brampton, Ontario. I'm here to speak on behalf of CAV 137 2021, 393 Sandhurst Drive. We're here before you tonight for one variance, asking for a lot coverage overage of about 2.03%. Our equation on that works out to about 20.93 square meters over the allowable. The coverage overage is attributed to the rear one-story covered porch on either side of the rear elevation, and it is very little impact to the neighboring dwellings. And we do note that one email was recently received from a homeowner about just over a kilometer away. However, we do note that there's no issues from the direct neighbors. The massing of the proposed development is in keeping with the newly built home directly to the west, as well as across the street and down the street. We do believe that our application meets the four tests, and we have full support of the town after working with the town to clarify the extent of the application and the massing and our efforts to diminish the massing and the impact of the surrounding areas. However, I am open to answering any questions and happy to do so.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Thank you, Lynn. Are there any questions at this time? I see none. If there's no one in the attendance that would like to speak to this application, we'll take the matter into committee. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, it's 1 second here. Having reviewed the written submission from the applicant, as well as listening to the oral presentation by their agent, also noting that the town staff written report was in support of the application, as well as noting that there was just one letter of objection for the application. I do find that the application does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And I would like to move a motion that it be approved as applied for with the following 2 conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan, Revision 3, dated July 19th, 2021, and elevation drawings dated July 20th, 2021. And our second condition, that the approval expired 2 years from the date of the decision, the burden, if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, members of the committee. Good evening.
Good evening. I believe this is the last item on the agenda, and I think this is the item that you have a conflict with, Mr. Flemington. So I'll wait for Madam Secretary Treasurer to take you out of the attendance.
Madam Chair, I remove Mr. Flemington.
Okay, thank you. Just pulling up the letters. Okay. So we're looking at application CAV 111 of 2021 at 3835 Bristol Circle. Again, it's application CAV 111 of 2021 at 3835 Bristol Circle. If anyone is interested in speaking to this application, they can call 905-815-6095 and you'll be given further instructions to join the video conferencing. Go ahead. Who do we have here?
My name is Mark Sotana from Richardson International, authorized agent, mailing address of 2801 Lombard Place, Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm speaking today for application CAV 111-2021 for the property of 2835 Bristol Circle. The proposed minor variance is to permit 4 exterior storage tanks adjacent to the main wall of the building structure in the front yard. Current bylaws permit only industrial or mechanical equipment be located in the rear or side yard. We are requesting this variance as existing structures and insufficient space along the rear and side walls do not allow for the proposed storage tanks critical to the business growth. If you could please go to slide 2. As you can see, showing east elevations, it details 4 30-foot tall storage tanks that will match the existing building structure height. If you could proceed to slide 4, east elevations. Yeah. The rendering from the east shows proposed landscaping plans that will aid in blocking sight lines to the proposed storage tanks, along with an existing wall that assists with screening the tanks from the public realm. To conclude, the proposed storage tanks are not out of character with surrounding properties, and as per our last attempt, neighboring properties have not raised any concerns or objections on the storage tanks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sotana. Are there any questions at this time? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, a question for staff. I have concern with your proposed condition number 2. How do you implement that condition when it's effectively an after the fact that they implement landscaping within a year of getting their building permit? What happens if they don't? How is this condition implemented or forced to them to adhere to it?
Through you, Madam Chair, in this instance, it would be through bylaw enforcement, I believe, that they could then come in and make sure that they've implemented the landscaping that would be relevant. But I can look into that further and clarify that for you.
Thank you.
Did you need that information before we discuss the motion, whether to approve or not, or?
No, Madam Chair. I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no one else that wishes to speak to this.
Okay, very well. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, if there's no one in attendance that'd like to speak to the application, we will take the matter into committee.
I don't see anybody that raise their hands, but if they want to speak, there is 2 people in attendance. If they want to speak, they need to raise their hands.
Okay. If there's anyone in attendance for application CV 111 of 2021 at 2835 Bristol Circle, please do raise your hand to speak to the application.
There is no people.
Go ahead, Ms. Field.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I just want to confirm, yes, it would be through bylaw enforcement that would be implemented.
Okay. Mr. Stana, you're aware of these conditions and you're satisfied with them? You feel confident that once you've obtained your building permit, you'll be able to maintain the landscape plan to proceed?
Yes. We are in agreement with all the conditions, yes.
Okay, very well. I will leave that up to you, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 Tesla Planning Act. I don't see the variance being requested causing an impact. Madam Chair, I'm not comfortable with condition 2, so I'm not going to impose it. The committee's been cautioned in the past about imposing conditions that aren't necessarily enforceable through the minor variance. The site plan approval will have the landscape plan, and I assume the town can, enforce the site plan approval. So I'd make the approval conditional on the construction being in general accordance with the submitted site plan elevation drawings dated June 6, 2021, and that the approval expires if the permit hasn't issued within 2 years.
Okay, very well. Discussion on this recommendation. I'm okay with your recommendation, although I didn't see any harm in having the landscape plan implemented, but we'll leave that up to town staff. All those in support? Okay, and the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, good night, Mr. Stana. Okay, you'll bring Mr. Flemington back?
Yes, I do. He's back.
Hello, Mr. Flemington. Okay. I think that was the last item on our agenda. We have minutes to confirm. Those are the August 24th minutes, would like to confirm those minutes? Mr. Flemington? And then motion to adjourn. Mr. Talowski is motioning to adjourn at 8:25.